cyber attack on the banks takes place, and they say, well, the existing money in your account has disappeared. The hackers took it, but we can return to you the exact same amount of money you had, but it won't be in the dollars you had before. It will be in USDC or this dollar-backed stablecoin, or it will be this token. So you can get an equivalent amount of money back, right? From the money that was stolen from you, but it has to be this new money.
In this Part 2 discussion from Big Picture with James Patrick featuring Whitney Webb, we continue to explore the hidden motives behind the rise of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, the ongoing cybersecurity threats to global financial systems, and how stablecoins might shape the future of decentralized currencies. At the time of this discussion, Bitcoin is trading around $66,000, with a 1% increase in the last 24 hours and a 4% increase in the last 7 days. Before we explore these topics further, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Now, let's hear from Whitney Webb on the emerging world of digital currencies.
It has to be part of this new system. There's the potential here for people to steal money from you and then essentially give it back to you, but with new conditions and with a new social contract.
Yeah. You
voluntarily accepted this new system and voluntarily onboarded to this new paradigm, but it's a coercion to an extreme degree. All of your money was stolen, right? And now you can only get it back if you take it in the form of the digital dollars that we approve of, or the CBDC, depending on where you are, Mm-hmm. So one indication the system is being rolled out in this way is looking at the people developing the infrastructure and what type of digital currencies they're supporting. So one of the biggest developers right now of CBDCs is this company called R3 that's backed by some of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world. And they were named by Central Banking Magazine as the CBDC Partner of the Year last year. And then they're developing a litany of CBDCs for countries all around the world. But that's just one part of what they do. They have this thing they call a digital currency accelerator. And the 3 types of digital currencies R3 develops are CBDCs, stablecoins, and tokenized deposits, or deposit tokens. And some banks in the US have already rolled out deposit tokens. Citigroup, JP Morgan. JP Morgan actually had a research paper out last year about how CBDCs are inferior to deposit tokens and how deposit tokens are better. So Oliver Gale, who defines himself as the founder of CBDCs, has more recently co-founded a company called Fluent Finance. What Fluent Finance is they attempt to create a trustworthy dollar-pegged stablecoin that they call US Plus. And it's sort of framed as an answer to dollar-pegged stablecoins like Tether that have been controversial for having opaque reserves. So the whole thing about US Plus is having trackable reserves in real time and all of this. And so it's an attempt to create a very extremely trustworthy and backed by a consortium of banks, a bank-led US dollar-pegged stablecoin. So if the inventor of CBDCs is moving into stablecoins, he probably knows that there's something there. So not that long after the COVID era began and the World Economic Forum started to be looked at, scrutinized more, particularly by independent media, people had noticed the overlap between the World Economic Forum and Event 201, for example, in the COVID crisis. And so during the COVID crisis, people paid a lot of attention when the World Economic Forum launched its cyber polygon simulations that were about cyber attacks. And during that same period of time, you had Klaus Schwab, the best known face of the World Economic Forum, saying that after COVID, there would be some sort of what he called a cyber pandemic that would have consequences that would make COVID's impact on society seem relatively insignificant by comparison. I think the whole idea of a cyber attack is sort of contradictory to a lot of the stuff that was pushed for during the COVID era, where we were pushed increasingly out of the physical world into the digital world. And then the digital world is also under attack from cyber attacks and what have you. So I think ultimately the goal is to use cyber attacks as a means of centralizing control of the digital world.
As we just heard Whitney Webb discuss the underlying dangers of cyber attacks and their role in transforming financial systems, now let's hear them dive deeper into the power struggle between public and private financial institutions. Whitney also sheds light on the growing influence of digital IDs in connection to these digital currencies and how they could potentially restrict financial financial freedoms. Now let's listen to what Whitney Webb has to say about these crucial issues.
So one thing that gets overlooked a lot with Cyber Polygon and some of these other related simulations about coming cyber attacks is that they seem to involve the big banks. And some of them even involve central banks. There's a major theme of banking here, which I think has been unfortunately overlooked, and it sort of implies that one of these cyber attacks of the cyber pandemic will be on the financial system to some degree. So, for example, if you look at Cyber Polygon, it was the WEF, but it was done in partnership with Russia's largest bank, Sberbank, and was one of the opening speakers of it was the Russian prime minister and things like that, which is in direct contrast, for example, to the supposed Russian hacker narrative that's been propagated extensively in U.S. mainstream media. The U.S. government had no problem and no criticism participating in Cyber Polygon and no criticism of the WEF for co-hosting their cyber simulation cyber attack simulation with the supposed hackers at large that supposedly interfered in the U.S. elections.
They said
in 2016 and 2020 there were a lot of narratives propagated by U.S. mainstream media about Russian hackers, and none of those mainstream media outlets criticized the WEF for doing their big cyber attack simulation in partnership with the Russian government. Cyber Polygon was the WEF and a subsidiary of Sberbank, Russia's largest privately owned bank, and also the Russian prime minister gave like the opening remarks, and it was affiliated to some degree with the Russian government. Yeah. So there's been a few entities besides the WEF that have sort of gamed out these cyber attack simulations in a very significant way. One of them is the Financial Services ISAC, or Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is essentially the biggest private banks in the United States coming together to share information and plan shared responses to potential crises, including a cyber attack on the financial system. And FS-ISAC is affiliated to an extent with the WEF and also with the Carnegie Endowment. And the Carnegie Endowment has similarly charted out potential solutions if and when there is a major cyber attack on the financial system. And they did so in partnership with the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and some of the biggest private banks in the world like JP Morgan Chase. Their proposed solution is to merge banks, banking regulators, and intelligence agencies as far as information sharing and analysis goes. So that's essentially having banks share your private transaction data directly with the CIA or any other U.S. intelligence agency that asks. Doing so is inherently unconstitutional. People would not consent to that if it were not for a major crisis that affects the banking sector.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they try and pilot these solutions before they're actually implemented, and if there isn't sufficient onboarding or uptake by the public, invariably an event comes along that creates fear and panic among the public to a very significant degree, and they begin clamoring for solutions to this problem that's causing the fear and panic, and the solution is often something that's been tested or pitched years prior. One example of this is, the Obama administration tried to make a driver's license for the internet, directly link your government issued ID to your online activity. And now we're seeing a push to do the same under the guise of stopping misinformation or stopping cybercrime and things like that. It's mainly coming from US, UK, and Israeli intelligence and the big banks through entities like the World Economic Forum's Partnership Against Cybercrime, for example. The cyber attack seems like a very possible scenario because it's a way for the banks to absolve themselves of any role in a financial crisis. It's an easy way to consolidate banks so that only systemically important ones survive the hack. And it could also potentially be a very effective means of onboarding people onto this new digital currency paradigm.
To watch the full interview, check out the link in the description. In summary, Whitney Webb details how digital currencies, specifically CBDCs and stablecoins, could redefine the way financial power is held and manipulated. We would love to hear your thoughts on some questions. Could digital IDs and CBDCs merge into a form of financial control? How do you see stablecoins influencing decentralized finance? Thank you for tuning in to Only the Savvy. If you enjoyed this discussion, please subscribe, like, and share our video for more engaging content exploring the evolving landscape of decentralized finance and technologies.